The family is very, very upset. My client, Justin in particular, was handcuffed behind his back for 2.5 hours. He's a disabled veteran. He had a gun in the house. That was the only gun. He had no knowledge the other person had an arrest warrant, no knowledge it was meth in the house. The police used a SWAT team, which I've never ever seen used in these parts for something like this. It was a white-collar crime search warrant concerning credit cards, and they battered down the door.
Now, of course, the police told us that there was meth involved with this suspect, that he had access to weapons, they knew there were guns in the house, and it was video surveillance. So all those things, they say, gave them and the judge who signed this warrant reason to bring in a team like this. Is that?
The only gun in the house belonged legally, as it with half of the United States citizens who have guns in their house, a United States veteran, Justin, who had a gun. That's the only gun in the house. So there weren't guns in the house, if that's what the police say. I take great issue with the Ankeny police chief saying they knocked, announced, no one came to the door. The video discredits that totally. It was a technical knock, then they battered down the door.
Have you seen the video? Because it does show, and that's what the police chief pointed out again at the news conference today, that as soon as they heard somebody knocking, they ran and hid behind a locked door in a bedroom.
All right. The knock, which you can watch in any police show and you see in the video, is a battering on the door, and then the door is broken down. And if that happened in my house, I'd probably try to run and hide too. And that's the other problem I have with the Ankeny police chief saying what he said, that somehow the end justifies the means, that people are hiding, that we're okay to batter down the door. That's wrong. Just because people hid, so what? They're probably frightened out of their mind.
What does the family want to do, or what do they want? Recourse, redress, pay for their broken doors?
Well, first of all, doors are inside destroyed. The veteran was on the toilet. Police come in with full flak jacket, automatic weapons, and order him to stand up, which he can't because he's going to the bathroom. Then he finally does, and they handcuff him behind his back, and he tells them that he's a disabled veteran. He had no idea the people they were trying to help in the house, who actually had the warrant, had a warrant. They had no idea he had a small quantity of meth. There was no lab. There was no violence. My guy's never been arrested before in his life. It's mind-boggling that this much force was used.
So what does the family want?
Well, right now they got to fix their house. That's what they need to do. And I talked to Mom and I talked to Justin today. They're very upset. And I asked Justin, who's going back to the vet clinic, about his disability, about whether or not he needs to talk to them. He hasn't been able to sleep. He hasn't been able to sleep since this happened. And I'm concerned that he at least talks to them about it.
So can we say that you're going to sue the Ankeny Police Department, or you're representing them with that in mind, or what your involvement here, I guess, leads to what?
My involvement here is to investigate what happened and to react to the one-sided comments of the Ankeny police chief. When I look at the film and see him try to say that they ran, therefore we can batter the door down, in other words, it's that people hid later, that's mind-boggling to me. Or that we knocked and no one came to the door. They didn't give him a chance to come to the door. In my experience, it was way too much force to use a SWAT team and batter down the door. And the United States Supreme Court has talked about this in many cases, as has the Iowa Supreme Court. When executing a search warrant or an arrest warrant, you got to balance the officer's safety, you got to worry about destruction of evidence, but to batter down the door with a team containing a hostage negotiator, snipers, the only thing they didn't have was tear gas and an armored vehicle, and I think it's outrageous for citizens in this town.
Just to piggyback on my colleague's question, though, what specifically is going to happen from here? Are you going to file a suit, and if so, what are you asking for in the suit?
I am going to try to get to the bottom of why they entered my client's home with force. That's what I'm going to try to do. I don't just go around and file lawsuits for kicks. I'm going to try to find out what happened. And then I'm going to try to effect change so they don't do that again to you or me. And that's what I do too.
When the chief gave the excuse, and he didn't specifically cite your client, but says that their intelligence indicates that there's weapons in the house, and we learned from reading this that it's because your client has shown in the past that he carries a gun on the outside in his house, which he has the legal right to do.
In his house and outside his house. He's got a carrying weapons permit recognized by the sheriff of this county.
Does that give the police enough concern to enter the way they did.
No. And you got to differentiate two issues here real quick. One is if they're just going on a credit card search warrant, they don't need a SWAT team. It's silly. It's absolutely mind-boggling, as I said before. And there's even a daycare across the street, and you watch these guys like on TV coming in single file and then battering down the door. It's really scary. It's just what some of the political element in this country, I don't always agree with, worried about. These guys are going to come in and take their guns. That's what very conservative people are worried about, and that's what we see on this film. So then the legal issue in this case is, because of the person who had an arrest warrant in that house that my clients didn't even know about, can they then knock down the door? And under these circumstances, I don't think so, but I'm going to investigate that. In my opinion, too much force was used, and they absolutely should have knocked and given somebody a chance to answer.
That's all I got.